Good Monday morning, English 1102 students. Welcome to week number 7, I believe, of our semester. So we are trugging right along. Um, Remember that tonight your first draft of your research paper is due. One thing I want you to remember about that first draft is it doesn't have to be perfect. If it was, it would be your final draft. And even then, most final drafts won't be perfect, obviously. So you've had plenty of time to work on this. I believe we started this way back in June sometime. We're now in the 6th of July. You've already partially written your research papers for the most part by having done the first two essays, and then you've done your annotated bibliography to get your research done, and you've received my comments on that. So hopefully you've made any adjustments that are necessary, and now is a matter of putting it all together into this paper. Remember that this first draft doesn't have to be perfect because you are going to receive comments from me. And the final draft isn't going to be due until the 24th, which will give me time to read all of your essays and give you some really good comments. And then it will give you time after you receive those comments to actually go in and write me a final draft, which is what you'll get your grade on. So you're not really getting a grade, I don't believe, on this research paper for turning in a first draft. I remember that 10% of your grade was whether you did a really good annotated bibliography or not. The other 90% should be the actual essay itself. And as I look through this, I find out that I am correct about that. Now, remember, go through your research paper instructions really carefully before you submit that, because you want to try to get as good a first draft as you can so you have less work to do on the final draft. Everybody's going to have some work to do on the final draft. There's just no getting around it. That's a part of the writing process. Even my first drafts, before I submit them for publication, are usually pretty lousy. And so I have to go back in and make changes. So if my first drafts are pretty lousy, then you shouldn't feel bad if you get back a first draft that actually has a lot of comments on it. But I need you to get those in tonight so that I'll have time to get you the comments you need. Then for the next, 9 days? Yes, for the next 9 days, you're going to be working on trifles. Very short play. You can read it in one sitting. That gives you a little bit more than a week to actually read it. There is a quiz that you're going to need to take, so make sure that you take the quiz in the quizzes area. And then the instructions for this and the Dropbox and the slideshow on trifles are all going to be in the trifles folder in D2L, and they are already uploaded. I've already taken care of that for you. So you will be able to get all this. The video ran a little longer than I wanted it to. The video runs about 33 minutes, and I really wanted to keep it under 20. But I've tried to thoroughly explain the play to you and the importance of some of the stuff. And I also went with this Trifles handout that I gave you, and I looked at the questions at the end of the video and said, okay, if you're going to choose this question, look at this, this, and this. So pay attention. Read the questions first so you'll know what to actually make comments or make notes about on a piece of notebook paper or a index card or whatever. Those trifles that the men scoff at turn out to be the very clues that Mrs. Hale and Mrs. Peters used to figure out Minnie Wright's motive. And that's an irony here, because the men are not looking where they should be looking for the clues. If they were smart investigators, they would have started in the kitchen, but instead they start at the bedroom and they go out into the barn of all places. Explain how we actually know Minnie Wright, even though she never appears on stage. By the time we get through Trifles, we will know Minnie Wright better than any other character, and yet she's never on stage. Why is that? So that is a very important point. Analyze her inner conflict between doing what's best. This is Mrs. Peters. Mrs. Peters is going to be the sheriff's wife, and she's quote unquote married to the law. And so, does she do what's right legally in order to try to help convict Minnie Wright, or does she actually take Minnie Wright's side because she is an abused wife and actually stick up for her? And that is going to be the main crisis of the story, is what is Mrs. Peters going to do? That's because what Mrs. Peters does is going to ultimately have an effect on how the trial against Minnie Wright is going to go. So that's the end of that. And then, of course, we've got the why does Mrs. Hale defend Minnie Wright so vehemently? Mrs. Hale is actually going to take Minnie Wright's side and she's going to think that the men are attacking Minnie Wright and women in general. Why does she do that? And why does she feel that it is her job to be her spokesperson? So those are your questions. The rest of these instructions I'm not going to go through. You've seen them 3 times already. This is your 4th time seeing these instructions. The rubric, of course, is back to the original rubric that I used for your prose and poetry essays. There's a different rubric for the research paper, but that research paper rubric's not going to matter because you're not doing research on this. You're just answering this question based upon what you know. So you've got 9 days. Read the play. You can do that in an hour or less. Take the quiz. Only 5 questions. Very easy. And then get to work on this paper. You want to do well on this paper since it's going to be not the last paper. The research paper will be the last paper, but it will be it matters in your grade. So that's all I have. So have a good week. I hope you enjoy trifles. I think most of you will really like trifles. And watch that video. There'll be some parts where you may want to snooze, but try not to. Try to stay awake and get through the rest of the video because I am going to try to explain this play in such a way that it'll help you on your paper. And if you have any questions, of course, you know what my office hours are. Oh, my office hours have been reduced now. I'm now teaching a B-term class. That means I have to stop my office hours at 3 instead of stopping my office hours at 4. That might be important. If you're going to come see me between 3 and 4, I won't be in the office anymore because I now have a B-term class that I actually have to participate in at that time. So take note of the reduced office hours. Take note of what's in the instructions for trifles, and let's get those research papers in so that I can help you write some really great ones.